This is William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse. Top secret documents that I read while with naval intelligence stated that President Eisenhower had commissioned the Jason Society to examine all the evidence, facts, lies, and deception to find the truth of the alien question. Founders of the Jason Group, not the same as the Jason Society, include members of the famous Manhattan Project, which brought together almost every leading physicist in the nation to build the atomic bomb during World War II. The group is made up mostly of theoretical physicists and is the most elite gathering of scientific minds in the United States. As of 1987, the membership included 4 Nobel Prize winners. Today, Jason continues to offer scientific help the government cannot find anywhere else. They are probably the only group of scientists in the United States that know the true state of highest technology. Jason is shrouded in what appears to be unnecessary secrecy. The group refuses to release its membership list. None of the members list Jason membership on their official resumes. Working completely behind the scenes, Jason has guided the nation's most important security decisions. These include, but are not limited to, Star Wars, submarine warfare, and predictions about the greenhouse effect. The Jason members are each paid a $500 per day consultant's fee. In the documents that I read while with naval intelligence, the Jasons predicted the greenhouse effect would lead ultimately to an ice age. According to the Pentagon, the Jasons hold the highest and most restrictive security clearances in the nation. They are given the protocol rank of Rear Admiral when they visit or travel aboard ships or visit military bases. The only reference to the Jason Group that I have been able to find is in the Pentagon Papers. The papers stated that Jason was responsible for designing the electronic barrier between North and South Vietnam for the purpose of sealing off infiltration of the South by North Vietnamese regulars during the Vietnam War. I was stationed on the DMZ, and I can tell you that it did not work. The veil of secrecy drawn around the Jason Group has been so tight and so leak-proof since its conception that those who think the government cannot keep a secret need to re-examine the position. The government was able to contain the Jason secret except for one leak, but the Jason Group itself, a civilian group, did even better. No leaks have ever occurred from within Jason. Jason is administered by the Mitre Corporation. Government contracts allotted to the Mitre Corporation are in reality allotted to the Jason scientists. This is done so that the name Jason does not ever appear in the documents which may come under public scrutiny. What is the difference between Jason Scholars or Jason Society and the Jason Group? The documents that I read referred to the Jason Society in exactly those words. In public documents, the only Jason reference is the Jason Group, administered by the Mitre Corporation. I believe the Jason Society is one of the highest degrees above the Skull and Bones and the Scroll and Key in the Illuminati. In other words, it is a higher level of initiation. The Jason Group is a scientific organization formed and hired by the Jason Society and the US government for obvious reasons. I know a lot more about the Jason Society and the Jason Group, but I do not want to injure Mr. Grant Cameron, who has done extensive research on these subjects. He will publish his research in the coming months. I guarantee his findings will amaze you. The Council on Foreign Relations has been the foremost flank of America's foreign policy establishment for more than a half a century. The Council on Foreign Relations is a private organization of business executives, scholars, and political leaders that studies global problems and plays a key role in developing U.S. foreign policy. The CFR is one of the most powerful semi-official groups concerned with America's role in international affairs. It is controlled by an elect group of men recruited from the Skull and Bones and Scroll and Key societies of Harvard and Yale, which are both chapters of a secret branch of the Illuminati known as Chapter 322 of the Order. The members of the Order make up the executive committee of the Council of Foreign Relations after undergoing initiation into the Order of the Quest, also known as the Jason Society. The CFR is an offshoot sister organization to the British Royal Institute of Internal Affairs. Their goal is a new world order. Although it existed as a dinner club in New York, it did not take on its present power until 1921, when it merged with the Royal Institute of International Affairs and received its financial base from J.R. Morgan, the Carnegie Endowment, the Rockefeller family, and other Wall Street banking interests. The Council on Foreign Relations controls our government. Through the years, its members have infiltrated the entire executive branch, State Department, Justice Department, CIA, and the top ranks of the military. Every director of the CIA has been a member of the CFR. Most presidents since Roosevelt have been members. The members of the CFR dominate ownership of the press, and most, if not all, of America's top journalists are members. The CFR does not conform to government policy. The government conforms to CFR policy. The appendix contains the most current list of CFR members that I was able to locate. I read top secret documents while with Naval Intelligence that stated that President Eisenhower had appointed 6 of the executive committee members of the CFR to sit on the panel called Majesty 12, also known as Majority 12 for security reasons. Majesty 12 is the secret group that is supposed to control extraterrestrial information and projects. The document stated that Eisenhower had also appointed 6 members from the executive branch of government who were also members of the CFR. The total membership of Majesty 12 was 19, including Dr. Edward Teller and the 6 members from the Jason Scientific Group. Again, whether this is true or disinformation depends solely upon the existence of aliens. The CFR is a secret society in that it forbids the taking of notes or the publishing of minutes of its meetings. Any member who divulges the subject of any part or any conversation or talk that took place during the meeting is terminated. The goal of the CFR is a new world order. George Bush is a member of the CFR. Knights of Malta play a powerful role in the scenario. In the 1930s, General Smedley Butler was recruited to help take over the White House. He was told that he was needed because of his general popularity with the military. General Butler blew the whistle and named several prominent Americans as part of the plot. At the top of the list was John J. Raskob, who was a founding member of the U.S. branch of the Knights of Malta. He was board chairman of General Motors. He was at the time the U.S. treasurer of the Knights of Malta.
Wow.
Congressional hearings were held to investigate the plot, but none of those named, including Raskob, was ever called to testify, and nothing ever came of the hearings. Although you will find in the congressional records, you will never find it in any history book anywhere.
Wow.
It is significant that the Iran-Contra episode has many similarities to the 1930s plot. William Casey was a member of the Knights of Malta. William Casey, with the help of Vice President Bush, Ann Armstrong, and Donald Reagan, caused the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board to be emasculated so that Bush, Casey, North, and others could carry out their dirty deeds without oversight. They had developed a plan to suspend the Constitution of the United States and were preparing to implement the plan when they were caught. These facts emerged from the hearings, but were suppressed by the committee chairman, Senator Daniel Inouye of Hawaii.
I remember him.
Yep.
He was a veteran too.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
You must understand that tremendous power was involved in both attempts to overthrow the United States government. William Casey was the director of the CIA. He was a member of the CFR.
Mm-hmm.
Casey was a Knight of Malta. He was the head of Ronald Reagan's political campaign. He was head of the Securities and Exchange Commission. During the Nixon administration, he was head of the Export-Import Bank. Casey arranged financing for the Kama River truck factory in the Soviet Union, with 90% of the funds guaranteed or furnished by the U.S. taxpayer. This factory built military truck and tank engines for the Soviet Army. It was, and may still be, the largest factory in the world and could produce more heavy trucks than all U.S. factories together. I believe Casey was murdered.
Well, wow. There's one thing I heard here when you first started reading. It talked about the scientists, right? And how they got all these scientists from internally, correct? It said that from within the country, the best scientists to work on whatever project it was. But here's the reality. Prior to World War II, my understanding is, yeah, we had some scientists here and there and some know-how here and there, but not nearly to the level we had after World War II, right? And where am I going with this? We really didn't develop any teeth that I understand in the scientific realm until Operation Paperclip, right? And Operation Paperclip basically allowed us after World War II to cherry pick the best German scientists, right? And some Russian at the time, mainly Germans, my understanding. And a lot of these Germans said, oh, by the way, they cherry picked, okay, and you can research it, were Nazis or supported the Nazi party.
Well, our scientists weren't that bad, Dan. We beat them to the punch on the atomic bomb.
Well, who do you think helped develop the atomic bomb? We had some Germans helping us too, right?
Well,
Right.
who did we drop the bombs on? Japan, right?
We dropped them on Japan,
Yep. But
Nagasaki and Hiroshima, right?
we defeated the Germans in May. We defeated the Japanese in
August.
August.
I thought.
So that program had been going on. Obviously, Einstein was involved, and he was a former German, but he wasn't part of Operation Paperclip.
Not that I'm aware of.
Operation Paperclip was after World War II.
Yes. Not much shortly thereafter. But I guess where I'm going with this is that, you know, it goes that far back. That's really the first big operation that I know of where now we're starting to do stuff with the government that's starting to, you can argue, get shaky, you know, ethically, morally, whatever.
No, I don't
right?
understand what you mean.
I just said we cherry picked a lot of those German scientists after the war, and a lot of them were
What do you mean that's the first big operation?
It's the first main one that I know of where we really started to I don't know how to put this delicately. You could argue get our hands dirty by cherry picking scientists that were either Nazi party members or heavily supported it, and were doing things in the Nazi party as doctors and stuff, you know, developing certain techniques and stuff like that through the use of using prisoners and stuff. I mean, these were not nice guys. A lot of them is what I'm telling you. Okay. They were like, some of them were like borderline, if not Jeffrey Dahmers with a degree, right? Experimenting on people and stuff like that, if you know what I mean. These were not nice people, a lot of them that were cherry picked. They were outright evil.
So you're saying, in your opinion, this is the first time the United States government looked the other way?
I won't say the first time they looked the other way. You could probably go as far back as the late 1890s when we started kicking ass and taking, you know, a lot of the Caribbean and stuff. I guess you could go back to the 1850s, but when we really started looking away, when it really became, I would say, you know, big time. You could argue maybe turning your back. This might be a big statement on God. I mean, when you're picking people that are that evil, I mean, you're laughing.
Well, I am laughing because we had slavery for 100 and something years in this country. What's more evil than that?
Yeah, that's pretty bad too. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
And we were killing we were slaughtering Indians and Mexicans and anybody else who stood in our way of expanding across the continent. So if you think all of a sudden the United States was good and holy until World War II,
no, I wasn't. No, I wasn't saying that. That's not what I was saying. But we really, in my mind, at that point, really turned a corner. I mean, the other stuff you cite as well is pretty.
If you start talking about the CIA starting to take over the government, then maybe I'll agree with you there. Okay.
All I'm saying
now
is
the CIA was starting to run the show after World War II and during World War II.
Yeah, agreed. I'm just saying we picked a lot of bad dudes to help us with, you know, further technologies and stuff, and to help with the Cold War and stuff. We picked guys that, you know, If you want to be real, there's no way they couldn't have known these guys' backgrounds. You know, some of these guys were just pure friggin' evil. Okay, pure evil, and we were willing to put them on our team and give them a jersey, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, because they didn't want them going to the Russians. Or, you know, hey, it's all about winning at that point.
But nobody thought about maybe putting them on trial like Nuremberg and then maybe sentencing them to prison for their war crimes. That didn't appeal to anybody because of their knowledge, I guess. I'm just saying. That's what happens when you're an idealist, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, I digress. Yep. Keep reading. That's what popped into my head.
Finished with, I believe Casey was murdered.
Yes.
And he died. I looked it up while we were doing. He died of a brain tumor. So who knows? But
really, wow.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty of things. The Russians are experts at putting stuff in your system and causing tumors and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's how they zapped Smedley Butler.
Is that how they kill Smedley?
He died of some sort of cancer, but he died in like 30 something. So I'm sure they.
Yeah, back then, forget it. Yeah.
You know, the hospitals had no idea what radiation poisoning was back then.
Well, you beat me to it. I was going to say the Russians are really good with all kinds of radioactive stuff and putting it in your food or drink or something.
I'm not talking the Russians. I'm talking Smedley Butler.
No, I understand. I'm just saying in general, there are people that, especially Smedley didn't have a chance.
The Russians didn't have that stuff back in the 30s. We did.
No, not that far back, but but yeah. Well, they got the Smedley, that's for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was too busy talking. he would have kept talking until he blew the lid off that. Okay.
Well, he was, I mean, from a layman perspective, you can argue he was a true patriot. Now, from the opposite perspective, the guys that don't want him talking, they don't see him as a patriot. They just see him as a friggin' big mouth that needs to be shut up. And if he's not going to stop by his own volition, then they're going to stop him. It's that simple.
Well, the people you're referring to, they don't consider themselves Americans or Russians or Chinese or English.
Agreed.
They don't consider them patriots.
No borders, language, or culture. Yeah. None of that matters to them.
Nope. This book is basically said it, and maybe they said it directly, is the only thing that matters is that group.
Control, power. Yeah. Via that group. The group comes first and foremost because it's through that group in which it's essentially a vehicle for control and power. And to disperse that out accordingly and to control essentially the masses and essentially the planet. That's what it's about. It sounds like a novel, but it's actually real. Well,
if we talk about the human nature, well, that is human nature. Human nature is, our society is like dogs. Our society always needs an alpha.
Well, yeah. Well, human nature, I agree. Particularly when you put man in the mix, right? Now you're talking a voracious appetite, ego, pride, masculinity, testosterone, all of it together. And it boils down to put it in colloquial terms, this is how man basically is. Who's got the bigger dick, so to speak, meaning who's got the bigger army, right?
Yeah, and survival of the fittest.
I've got a million-man army, and I've got heavy armor pointing at you. What are you going to do about it? I'm the big peacock, strutting my wings, pumping my chest out. You don't like it? Why don't you deal with my tank division? See how that goes. That's man.
Or my 2,000 ICBMs that can destroy the world 300 times.
Yep. Or if you go back, thousands of years ago, go back to the Roman army, same thing. Heavily organized professional army at the time. It's like, oh, Gaul, you don't like what we're doing, or the German barbarians at the time, or the Brits at the time. Why don't you kiss my ass as I send in a phalanx of, 40,000 soldiers with cavalry and air support, by the way, flaming arrows. We've been doing it since the beginning of time. That's man for you. All our best advances have been how to kill each other, which is amazing.
Cain and Abel.
how to kill each other.
Yep.
You wonder why God gets upset with us. You wonder why you go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verse 6, I believe, 6 through 9, where God expresses his outright regret having created man. Now, when God Almighty expresses regret in creating man, that's all you need to know. When the Creator himself has a regret in that regard, what does that say about us?
Well, I mean,
I don't see how you can argue it.
if you look at a pride of lions, right, the way that they come in, right, they form groups, they have hierarchies.
Yeah,
Well, every animal kingdom has a hierarchy.
Well, but here's the difference. You just dichotomized it. We're not animals. God, I'm telling you right now, in the eyes, in the eyes of God, we're not animals. Man is not an animal. He doesn't see us like an animal, and he doesn't treat us like an animal. He expects better from us. He doesn't expect us to act like the beast. We do act like the beast. I agree with you. We are not beasts. We are above that. We have a spirit and a potential connection to him. So we're not animals, but I agree with you.
The people in the New World Order, I don't think probably
we act like animals.
I don't think they probably believe in God.
No, they don't.
And so they truly look at us as beasts, as cattle.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you
to be culled.
Well, and there's some truth to that, because if you look at the basic rank and file, just take America, for example, we've turned our back.
Walmart.
We've turned our back on God the last 45 years, at least, clearly. So what happens when you turn your back on God? You now essentially are devoid, for all intents and purposes, of the spirit, and thereby a connection back to God. So once you're devoid of that, you're basically carnal, and you're living in the flesh. So what do I mean by that? Carnal. Well, all you're concerned about is what you're going to eat next, what's your next great meal, what's your great nice shirt you're wearing or your nice suit, and then who you're going to bang next, right? That's it. That's living as carnal as it gets.
That's the simple life.
That's the most carnal life. And then in committing sexual immorality left, right, and center, which is what America does, by the way.
I remember those good old days, Dan.
Hey, I'm a sinner like the next one. I am not judging anybody. I'm guilty too, and God Almighty knows it. That's why I've accepted Christ, not because I'm better, but because I know I need it. That's the reason.
Did you see the picture I sent you last night?
No, I didn't. Which one?
I texted it to you last night.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
Sorry. Okay, I see the picture. Yeah. About the worry ends where faith begins. That one?
Yeah, it's a powerful statement.
Yeah, that was a great one. I thought I responded to that.
No. Oh, I know what you were talking about yesterday that I wanted you to talk about today.
What was I talking about?
The three things in the 70s that coincided to bring down our country.
He got it.
Yeah, well, you don't want to rely on me remembering anything, dude.
Okay, I got it. 1971 off the gold standard. 73 Roe versus Wade. Late 70s no fault divorce. And then 215. I don't want to upset people, but gay marriage. Got it.
This is all part of a plan to dismantle. When you look at what the U.S. Constitution delivered to the United States, it actually was the first time, at least that I know of, where it allowed, where it almost took the power in some ways out of the hands of a king or a dictator,
100%,
and put it into the hands of the people.
For the people, by the people. First time in history, I think.
Yep, and that's been a battle. You can look at the central bank as being really the evil influence trying to take down the United States. And it goes back to how Andrew Jackson, his fight against the central bank, and then they were finally able to get it back in and had the creation of the Fed back in the early 1900s.
That's right.
1913.
I
At the
think-
same time, they created the income tax.
Oh, no, wait. I thought the federal income tax was levied in World War II. And they said they were going to repeal it after the war because they needed to help raise funds and stuff. I thought it was World War II.
To my recollection, it was created in 1913.
You're probably right. Bottom line is it had a purpose to raise X amount of money, and it was supposed to be repealed. Of course, it never got repealed, and everybody seems to be fine with paying between 40 and 50% of their income.
Yeah, well.
Yet the American Revolution was for what? 1.5%. Now we pay over 40 and no one bats an
The
eyeball.
Revenue Act of 1913 imposed a 1% tax on incomes above $3,000 with a top rate of 6% on those earning more than $500,000 per year. Approximately 3% of the population was subject to the income tax.
Wow.
Because I remember, I don't believe in those type of coincidences, right? So all of a sudden they knew that, so, you know, left hand gets you, the right hand gets you, bang, bang. So just a coincidence that it came in at the same time.
We have a lot to talk about, dude. It really all started. You're right. I agree with you. In 1913, the federal income tax, 1920, you could argue, you got the FBI coming in, 47, the CIA, 71 off the gold standard, 73 Roe versus Wade, late 70s, no fault divorce. It's one
we
thing.
didn't even get into our entry into World War I, the creation of the League of Nations, then the United Nations.
Yep. Oh, and I forgot to mention, and we should get the exact date, but wasn't it the early 60s around there when they took the 10 Commandments out of the public purview? That was their way of walking us slowly away, right? You don't need the 10 Commandments that are tied back to the Bible and the Word of God. Well, what do we need these in public display for? We're going to take care of you. You don't need this. Just one little thing after another over time. And then you wonder, 100 years goes by, how did we get here?
Since 1970, since we went off the gold standard, the wages for most people in this country have been stagnant.
100%.
Okay. And so really it's accelerated. The last 50 years has really accelerated. And then in my opinion, 9/11 was the death blow. That was it. That was it. They saw that they could get away with anything on 9/11, and now they look. I mean, they laugh at us. Look at these airlines. The airlines, they go to Trump. We need a bailout, so they give them a bailout with the agreement they won't lay people off, because that's the only reason. That's the only reason you would give them a bailout, because the airlines are nothing. Airlines don't own their own planes. The airlines have employees, their logo, their name, and gates. They have gates at airports.
So they don't even really have assets, you're saying, per se, right?
Nothing. So if they went out of business, somebody would come along. All that would nothing would disappear. It'd be like.
So what do they lease the planes essentially?
Yeah, they lease the planes.
From who? The manufacturers or from who?
Sometimes the manufacturers, but usually from bankers.
Gotcha.
Leasing companies.
My bad. The banksters are in on it again.
Of course.
Yeah. Just like the 30-year mortgage. Same thing. Pay for life.
Yep.
People don't realize, folks, what mortgage means in Latin. It means for life until death. That's what the word mortgage means. Do you think that was chosen out of sheer randomness? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, let's not do a shotgun approach here. But so in the gold standard, went off the gold standard, and then we had Roe versus Wade. Those are two huge decisions that rocked this country. But most people don't even think of either one today.
Well, hold on. And I don't mean to debate you, buddy, but, Did Roe versus Wade really rock this country? I wonder. Did anybody put it up a stink? I
No,
don't think so.
no. What I'm saying is,
My
did you,
parents don't even know
did
what it
you,
is.
you didn't
And it
listen to
happened
what
in
I
their
said.
prime.
I said,
Yeah.
but nobody notices.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Nobody notices. Yeah. Yeah, they just slipped it in. Most people aren't familiar with that. And, yet we've killed over 60 million babies.
American babies.
Yeah.
Worldwide, it's probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, could be a billion.
Could be a billion plus. I mean, basic math, it's 20% of our population. So let's say it's 20% of the world population, which is currently 7 billion. That's 1.4 billion. That's 1.5 billion. So you're going to tell me out of 1 billion plus kids, we didn't kill some great people, potentially great people, scientists, scholars, maybe, who knows, they might have cured cancer. There's no telling who you killed in there. Only God Almighty himself knows.
Well, I don't know if this is true. I heard that 40% of aborted babies in the United States are black.
Or black. Yes, I've heard that too. So, so much for the, the BLM movement and all that, right?
About
why aren't they?
lives. Yeah, well,
yeah. Why aren't they getting pissed off about that?
Well, they're hypocrites.
Well, you could call them hypocrites, but I would argue they're ignorant. They just don't know. They know they're mad, but if you're going to be mad, you got to be mad for the right reasons. And if you're going to get to that point of anger, then you better be educated so that you can channel it accordingly. Otherwise, it's just anger and you're scattering it all about. That's how I see it. And that's when you see riots and people just running around, burning stuff and blowing up buildings and burning businesses. I mean, why would you burn an innocent business down, especially a small business? Somebody that's totally innocent, just trying to make a living day in and day out, and you go in there and you torch the place.
Well, I told you what Catherine Austin Fitts said about
what
that.
What freaking purpose does that serve?
Well, I told you what Catherine Austin Fitts mapped out in Indianapolis about that, right?
Yeah, you did. The blocks.
It's a plan. It's not random. It's a random.
Right.
Those businesses are targeted.
That's a good point.
See, that's what those. All you got to do is the people who are in those protests, they probably can't even rent a U-Haul. So those U-Hauls that are bringing all this stuff, they should find out who exactly rented them. Then know what the money was.
You make a good point. I guess where I was going with that is, like, the 20-somethings that are joining these marches and joining these protests and stuff, and that are getting amped up, they're helping fuel this thing by design, right? And I guess they're doing stuff and being angry, but they don't even know, really what they're doing and what they're supporting.
See, I'm just going to say, I think the real enemy here is whoever's funding them, number one, but also who is publicizing it.
Yeah.
I don't think that these movements are as grandiose as you think. I think that they're made to look grandiose by the Main Street media.
Well, I didn't say they were grandiose, but I'd agree with you too that the media has a history of showing events that look much bigger than they truly are.
Yeah, it's all part of an agenda. It's the same agenda.
Yeah, no debate here.
Yep.
But you realize when you say stuff like that, the rank and file, even your own family members, would call you a conspiracy guy.
Yeah, there's a clip of
that.
Yeah, here, I'm going to look for this clip because I'm sure that you haven't seen this.
And I can tell you, which is a sad thing, and I don't mean to pick on anybody, but the bulk of the baby boomers, I would say, are going to fight you tooth and nail on everything you're saying.
Well, I'm not worried about it.
I'm not worried about it either. I'm just making a comment. They're the ones that hold the majority of the wealth, at least for the moment.
Have you ever heard of Yuri Bezmenov?
Russian scientist?
No.
Suffice to say, Mr. Cooper was onto a lot of stuff, guys.
He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process, which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interest of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism.
Sounds familiar.
The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization.
Right on.
The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation.
Did you get that?
2 to 5. We're well beyond that, baby.
That's what the hard part's already done. We've already been hollowed out, basically. The first part was the hollowing out. Mm-hmm. Now the destabilization is where you're able to tip it over because it's hollow.
Ideas and the patterns.
Yeah, the termites got to it.
And get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation. What matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized. This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kinds of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C.
Stop that real quick.
Benevolent dictators like...
Sounds like 2020, doesn't it?
Dude, this guy's spot on, brother. Did you hear what he said about capitalization? Take out capitalism? You hear that? Free market and all that? We're there, folks. We're there. We think it's normal now that the government does everything and runs everything from a centralized point of view and perspective. That's not free market. That's not laws of supply and demand. It's not. You don't need a PhD in economics to know that. It's astounding. Yeah, go ahead. Let this guy go further. He's excellent.
Crisis. To promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the
More goodies coming. Elect
Yep.
Biden. Get
Yep.
more goodies.
I need more free stuff. Bernie Sanders said it was for free. Burn said I don't have to pay anything.
I'll give you free college.
Free college.
Free healthcare.
Free healthcare. Everything's free. You can play golf for free. It's all free.
Free hamburgers.
I'll pay you Tuesday.
what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C.
God help us.
Benevolent dictators like
Wear those masks.
God
Wear
help
masks.
us. I'm serious, guys. You think I'm kidding. God help us.
D.C. with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things. Never mind.
Now, a lot of the people might not know who Walter Mantindale is, but this is 1984.
84 election with Ferreira was his VP. Woman, yep.
Your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies.
Used and abused.
When they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas.
This guy, I don't think he's a moron. He sounds like a pretty sophisticated, educated guy to me. And especially coming from the former Soviet Union, where he escaped, I think that there's a lot of credence to what he says. He had the ability to compare and contrast the two discrete systems, right? Unlike most of us.
Well,
This guy was telling you
like
point blank.
the woman from Czechoslovakia in our group there, Motor. Her real name is Eva. She's left several comments.
Okay.
She was able to see both sides. She grew up in the Eastern Bloc.
Absolutely. What a perspective. So she saw the troops and she saw the tanks rolling in.
Yep.
When you see heavy armor and heavily armed troops rolling in, folks, through your streets, you know that's the real deal. This woman lived it.
Yeah, and how about, and Trump has said multiple times, the army is ready to go. They're ready to go, and we're just waiting for the vaccine to be ready.
That scares the hell out of me. And I almost want to drop the F-bomb, but every effing moron, I hate to say it, even people in my family, bravo, bravo.
Yep.
They don't see it. They think that's normal. That's a good thing.
How many people in New England even are able to, how many people were applauding the cops during the Watertown incident after the Boston Marathon bombing, when they supposedly tracked down that kid in the back of in the boat in the backyard, and every cop from every region was going down and joining the hunt. And they basically imposed martial law right then and there.
They did. Watertown was under martial law.
There were people arrested on the street. They like, go back inside your house, and there were people like, up yours, and they dragged them away from their own house.
Yeah, so much for
the
freedom.
precedents are there.
Oh yeah. Well, they always start little, guys. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. I want to take a mile, but if I'm coy and I'm savvy and I'm sneaky, I'll take an inch or two at a time. An inch or two at a time.
I don't think they worry about that anymore.
Not anymore, but in the beginning, that's what it was, to
They
get the
were-
first third of a mile or a half of a mile. And now you've lost all that. You have no clue how you lost it.
Well, the point is what are people going to do now? There's nothing you can do now. It's signed, sealed, delivered.
Well,
How many people are actually joining a local militia? How many people know how to use a firearm? How many people actually own a firearm and actually are trained in it and know how to use it? And have
that one-
ammo.
that went about a generation or two ago. Fathers used to teach their sons up until a generation or two ago about firearms, how to hunt,
Yep.
you know,
and also how
how to use it.
How effective is even AR-15s against what even just the police have today? You notice the police have been turned into military units now.
Yeah, they're paramilitary. Absolutely.
Okay.
I
Towns brag when they say, now we have our own tank. And you're like,
Yeah.
what does your dinky little town need a tank for?
Dude, I couldn't agree more. Personnel carriers, AMRAMs,
Well, they
all
call
that stuff.
They
Yeah.
call them tanks.
And I
No,
see
they're not tanks.
and I see cops now in small towns, and I've noticed it for years. Nobody seems to bat an eye. I notice it though, not because I'm wonderful, but when I see a cop in military fatigues, in combat boots, okay, and he's wearing a vest, and he looks like basically a freaking special ops soldier, that makes me think, what is going on here? Why is he amped up to that level, to the nine, to the teeth, right? Right? I mean, is he going to go raid a drug house where they're armed with automatic weaponry and stuff, and whatever, rocket launchers in his face? No, he's doing his thing, patrol on the streets. I mean, really? I mean, and nobody seems to notice.
And
Nobody seems.
for those who are curious, they will fire upon U.S. citizens.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, they took protect and serve off the cars 30 years ago. I don't see any towns where the cop cars say to protect and serve like when we were kids growing up.
There's a couple, but not many.
Yeah, not many. Not anymore. That's all you need to know, folks.
I think Detroit just put it back on their cars recently.
Good. I hope they mean it. I hope they mean it. To protect and serve. That means you're there to protect the rank and file, the average citizen, for the people, by the people. That's what it's supposed to mean.
Yeah. And, well,
I'm not saying we're brilliant, but try to read between the lines, people. I know we're all kept overly busy these days because the kids have 75 activities and everybody's running around, and mom and dad aren't home till 6 or 7 at night, and Junior's got 3 or 4 hours alone at home, vaping, and whatever. He's got his girlfriend over. God knows what's happening. I mean, that's where we're at. That's the state of the nation.
Yeah, the kids run the family today.
100%.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Most families. No doubt about it. Absolutely. And most families too, and this is just an observation. It's not a judgment. Most families are blended. So what does that mean? You're on the second or third marriage and you've got everything blended.
Yeah.
But the reality is, with the blended situation, probably more times than not, no, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm sure I'll be challenged, but more times than not, when families are blended, the level of care isn't quite what it should be all the way around.
Yeah. Well,
Just not.
Well, we could talk for 3 hours on that topic. So
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm not going there. I'm just saying that, is it any wonder why, we have the issues we have as a society?
Well, hey, dude, listen, you say people aren't animals. Well, that's a perfect example.
Well,
is why do people have to put the desire for having to find a partner or a mate as the most important thing in their life? I mean, it really isn't.
Well,
So
it depends. It depends.
that's
The
fine
family,
for you. It doesn't depend for me.
well, that's fine, Dave, but the reality is the family, at least for man, since the beginning of time, in any at least fruitful and successful society, at least at one inception point, is the basis of society. It's the ultimate building block of society, the family. Okay, but
It's a man-made institution, dude.
no, it actually isn't. I said that years ago and I was wrong. Actually, marriage was actually devised and essentially given to us, if you go by the word of God. Yeah. Yes, it was.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. That
Well, what do you think Adam and Eve was? Why do you think God created Eve?
wasn't a marriage.
Maybe not from he didn't call it marriage right away, but essentially he gave Adam, a mate, right? And the intent was for life and to be fruitful and to multiply and to be monogamous. God's all for sex. He created sex. God loves sex. He loves it when people are getting it on, if you really want the truth. But he likes it in a monogamous marriage type framework. He doesn't like it in a porno type framework where you got 75 partners and you're filming yourself and, hey, look at me. No, he doesn't like that because he knows the beginning, the end, and everything in between. He knows the problems that it ultimately creates. And America's a perfect example. We can't control ourselves morally. We can't. Look at us. That's why we have a $20 billion a year porno industry that continues to grow. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying.
It's also the reason for abortion, dude.
That too. When you get knocked up at 17 or 19, you're going to be inconvenienced for the next 20 years, plus or minus, whether you like it or not. But, oh, wait a minute. You mean I can have an abortion? It's my body. Yeah, it is your body. It's your body. But that's a separate DNA system that you're killing. Bottom line. It is contained in the mother, true, but it's a separate human being.
Well, like
People
a lot
don't-
of problems, you just pay $300 or whatever it is, and it goes away.
People don't think of that. Yeah, it's the woman's body. I agree. She has the right to do, I guess, what she wants with her body. But what do you say about a separate human being inside of you? Do you have a right to do what you want with that being that's been created? I'm not judging you. I'm just saying, do you have that right? That's the question we need to answer.
It's already been answered.
Well, just because something, okay, so my answer to that is just because, folks, a law has been put on the books doesn't make it right. Man's not always right, ethically and morally. Just because we
Well, just
put a
'cause
law
it's
on the
law-
books,
just 'cause there's a law doesn't mean I'm going to participate.
just because it's a law doesn't mean it's morally and ethically correct.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't care about morals and ethics, then fine. I mean, now you've got, now we are truly animals at that point. We're no different than the beast in the jungle that's just killing by instinct and killing it.
Not only that, Dan, but I think you would be surprised how many people, and I don't know what the percentage is, not even going to guess, but I'll bet you there's a certain percentage of people who have that position that they would never agree in abortion, and then all of a sudden they get pregnant. They don't want a kid. They don't want to get fat. They don't want to ruin their body. They don't want to take the time, and they go and have an abortion. Again,
look at none of us. We're all sinners. None of us are perfect, myself included. I don't want to judge the person, but the question I do want to raise is, if you believe in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, if you believe in God, if you believe in God's word, and if you're even remotely familiar with God's word, okay, this isn't my opinion, okay? Don't take my word for it. Look it up. God would never support abortion.
Well, thou shalt not kill.
He doesn't support murder.
The whole point is what Bill Cooper is trying to say is that there's a secret group of people who run the show.
Yeah, and
all of this is all of
orchestrated.
All of these are instruments of their plan.
Yeah, it's one mass or grand orchestration, And in order to operate this way, you're devising certain modes of operation and principles, shall we say, that probably don't subscribe to the Word of God. I'll leave it at that. I'm trying to be logical, rational, and empirical about this. Probably doesn't subscribe to the Word of God. So if it doesn't subscribe to the Word of God, it's anti-God. And you can draw your own conclusions from there.
Why are you bringing this up? We're talking about Bill Cooper.
Yeah. And we're talking about what you just said. Okay, the groups that he's talking about that want to run, essentially orchestrate and control and be, power of the world. That's what the New World Order is about.
Well, the whole point is how, I mean, it's
centralization coming down from the top. That's ultimate centralization.
No, what I was going to say is the bottom line is, what's the point of anybody even being aware of this if they can't change it?
Well, that's a good point. At a macro level, I think you're right. I mean, if and I don't want to diatribe too much, but if you look at it, okay, if you look at it from, let's say, the Book of Revelation's point of view, which is analogous to the secular point of view, the New World Order, you're right. I mean, we really can't change this. This is all coming down. It's all going to happen. But it's still important for the individual, I would argue, Dave, to know, because without you knowing, you can't prepare. And what do I mean? Well, what do you mean by prepare, Dan? What are you talking about? Well, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Okay, we can argue what physically and mentally means. Okay, we could argue that all day. People have different thoughts on that. But spiritually, I think you know what I mean. People have to be prepared. They got to make their amends, and they got to make their peace with God with what's coming down the pike. That's what it means to me.
Well, it also means to me that
and that all of this is temporary.
People in this country could end up getting into railroad cars just like they did going to Auschwitz. I know
it's a possibility.
Nobody thinks that could ever happen to Americans. Americans would fight to the death. Come on, folks, look around. Look at, you see jerks wearing their mask, driving their car when they're alone in the car.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Get in the train. Oh, okay.
Yeah. You're going to FEMA. Have fun.
Yep. Put your head in that guillotine. Oh, okay.
If we think in America that this stuff's not possible and that we're just above it all and we're so awesome and perfect, it can't happen.
Well, you remember...
We're grossly naive.
You remember we were at John's pool party there, and I was making some of these comments, and that I forget the guy's name, real nice
from
guy,
Virginia, I remember.
Yeah, real nice guy, but he's like, the worst or the best of every other country is no better than the worst in our country. And I was like, dude, what can you say to that? I mean, if you're that out to lunch, I mean, come on. You're never going to be like, you never.
Well,
if somebody is that dull, who has taken no time to research.
Well, but hold on. That was at a point in time. If you asked him that same question today, he may answer differently because that was pre 9/11, I thought.
No, it wasn't.
Or was it post 9/11? It
was post 9/11. Absolutely.
Okay. I wonder if he would say those same words today. That's all I'm saying, in lieu of everything that's happened the last 12 to 15 years.
Well, your family does. My brother does.
Well, in the case of my family, if you take my parents, for example, they've been retired for 20 plus years. They're old baby boomers. They're in their 70s and 80s. And as much as I love them and want to respect them, they're utterly freaking brainwashed.
Well, I hate to be argumentative because it's not my nature.
You argue?
But
you be argumentative?
But
never.
But I think the great majority of people who think that they might, I think that they believe in this Q. I think they believe that Trump is a force of change, that we're going to defeat the swamp. I think we're wasting our time on a lot of this stuff because it doesn't mean anything, Dan. It doesn't mean anything reading Bill Cooper's book. We did what we were told to do as far as the Bible, but the rest of Bill Cooper, what's the point? It's entertainment.
I do think there's a faction of people out there, albeit the gross minority, that would heed it. I do, like maybe 10%.
Wow.
5% maybe.
Think about that.
So
5% of 300 million? No way.
Yeah.
No way.
All right, let's say it's 2%. That's still a lot of people.
Yeah. Let's say it's 1 out of a million.
Well, 10% of 300 million is 30 million. 1% is 3 million. So you don't think 3 million would heed it? I think 3 million easy. Easy.
Heeding it means they actually take action. So no. Like you, Dan, I know you think you take action, but you don't. And most people don't.
Okay.
You know, I don't. Okay. So
Okay.
we're all talk.
Okay. I guess it depends on what you define action as. If me to sell everything, get rid of everything I own, and just fucking go to Mexico in a tent, yeah, that's a form of action.
No,
Yeah, it's a
I'm
form
not.
of action.
No, I'm not saying we're talking. It depends what we're talking about. I'm talking about defeating the New World Order. I'm not talking about anything with the Bible at this point, or, you know, but yeah, I mean, if you talk about, in my opinion, it's like, if you're going to defeat the enemy, then you can't be in the enemy's system, right? Or you can't play the enemy's game. If you play their game, you're going to lose, because they have the players who play that game. You don't.
True.
The people give up all their power. That's the whole point of a centralized government. It's a lot easier to control everything.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and that's where we're headed. We're absolutely headed there.
We're there.
I mean, we're there already to an extent. It's just going to get grander. It's going to continue to grow or proliferate, or those tentacles are going to continue to envelop us.
Well, when they come out and they say we're locking down again.
Yeah, what are people going to do? I think the bulk of the rank and file will just say, okay.
Do we get a PPP?
Yeah.
Okay, if you're giving me my $600 a week, I'll wear my mask. You can lock me down.
Great.
I'll stay in my room and smoke my bong and watch video games and
Great. I'll get something for free for 6 months and hang out in my pajamas. What they don't realize is every day that goes by, your skills are eroding. So that at the end of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you basically don't have any skills because you've been doing nothing. That's the danger.
Well, that's a ridiculous statement, because how many of them had skills to begin with?
It's not a ridiculous statement.
Most people in this country don't have real skills, Dan.
Okay. Again, it depends what you define skills as. I mean,
well, if I put you up against a Chinese worker, guaranteed most American workers are not going to be able to compete.
Well, I guess it depends on what you're talking about. I mean, we don't have a manufacturing base, so I guess if you put them up against somebody in manufacturing, that's probably true. Yeah. And the work ethic is probably different too.
Well, if you talk about what actually forms GDP, services can't create. 70% of our economy is service-based, right? You can't support an economy.
I don't know what percentage is service-based. I know it's huge. I know you really need to create tangible things, should be the bulk of your GDP or GMP. Definitely. And I don't know if that's the case with us anymore. You're right. I mean, look at our manufacturing, but what do we actually build anymore? We build houses, I guess. We build buildings. We build cars, I guess. We build McDonald's hamburgers. That's now created.
And we don't even build the cars. They're all subcontracted.
Hamburgers are now included in manufacturing, right? You and I checked that out a few years ago. That's considered building something.
Yeah, I think it was. And
Yeah. No, I'm serious. Yeah. Every burger that's built adds to the GDP.
well, no, it all adds to GDP. That was the subsector of manufacturing.
Yeah.
Well, that the government likes to manipulate numbers to. It's like they say.
That's where I was going with that.
Samuel
Exactly.
Clemens, Mark Twain, who said, "Lies, damned lies, and statistics."
Exactly. Or to quote Joseph Stalin, one death is a tragedy. 1,000,000 deaths is a statistic.
So the Deagle website would say 300 million Americans dead, or it's just.
Well, if we reduce it, if we go from 327 million, to your point, to 100 million by 2025, that's a grand statistic. 70% reduction, that's a statistic. It's just merely a statistic. God forbid, though, if 3 people die from COVID, including your grandmother, that's a tragedy. That's a tragedy. But if we lose 210 million in the next 5 years, it's just a statistic.
I just finished this book that my buddy Paul gave me called the Celestine Prophecy, and it talks about how people need to be aware of coincidences and explore them when they occur. But how many times do things happen in our lives where we're so busy we don't even notice things? We don't notice these signs. We don't notice these messages.
And that's why we're distracted constantly. And that's why the powers that be distract us. That's why Satan himself is the grand distractor. While he's marching around the earth, prancing around like a lion looking for his next victim, and you're out of it because you've got ADD and you can't focus on anything, particularly basic situational awareness, and you walk right into it, literally or figuratively.
Yeah, because most of us are running on a treadmill for stuff we don't need.
Yep. That's our society now, the last 30, 40 years. It's all about pure consumerism. Just keep buying shit. Buy. Oh, you can't afford it. Oh, you have no budget. You have no clue how much money's going out the window every month versus what's coming in. Most people are in deficit mode and they don't even know it because they don't even have a basic budget. They just buy at whim, left and right, constantly. And that's what our own government does.
Well,
they
that's
just spend at whim.
I heard this horrible statistic that people who are retiring right now, they don't even have $10,000 in retirement. Like 70% of the people retiring now.
That's insane. $10,000 will last you, what, a month or two if you're lucky?
But how are you going to retire?
That's what I just said in different words.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, a month? What are you going to get, a month or two out of that? Now what? Now your money's gone. Now what? You can't buy food and you can't pay the rent. Now what are you going to do? Oh, I get it. That's why you're a greeter at 79 years old at Walmart for $10.50 an hour. Not knocking anybody, not knocking greeters, but who wants to be a greeter at 79 at Walmart? Or
Well,
who wants to?
If you're making $1,500 a month on Social Security a month, that might not be enough.
Yeah, that's right. Good point. Exactly. Yeah, it probably isn't. If you're living on the East Coast or California, it's not enough.
That's why a lot of retirees move to Mexico.
Yeah, they have to. They have no choice. It's like pure survival. It's like, do you feel like living a few more years or what? Because you ain't going to make it living in Philly or New York or Boston or whatever, or San Francisco. That ain't happening.
Florida's not cheap anymore.
Nope.
And forget about California. It used to be Florida and California that people would go to live a better life.
Yeah, not anymore. Those places, they're destroyed for all intents and purposes. All the weenies from all the other places that destroyed the other places where they came from then went there and destroyed those places because those places had to be the same now as where they came from. Yep. That's what kills me.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, it's not like where I was here before. I need all these services and stuff like that. Well, guess what? There's a price for that, knucklehead. Yeah, somebody needs to help me blow my nose. There's a tax for that. I know they'll help me.
Yeah. Yep.
And so now we're in homogenous-ville. Huh?
Double the school taxes. We need another 2 points on the next test.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even though we still rank, what, 25th in the world in math and science. We're not number one, not even close.
Oh, no.
How many engineers do we even turn out anymore from undergrad? Seriously, most of them are probably foreigners.
I would almost certainly bet that most of them are foreigners.
Yeah, and in your software engineers and software designers and stuff, network engineers, most of them are foreign. Absolutely, because the American kids, I don't want to be critical, but they don't have the gumption anymore. Why don't they have the gumption? Because they don't really have a mother and father in place anymore, and nobody's supporting them and pushing them, right? So they grow up not knowing. And so they go for the easiest thing, if at all, if they even do go to school. They get some half-assed degree, they graduate, and now I'm working on my master's degree, but they're a friggin' waiter and they're living at home. I mean, that's what we're generating now. That's what we're generating. It's not the kids' fault. And oh, by the way, they're $2 trillion in debt with school loans, by the way. We saddled them with that too. Government got involved in that too.
Yep, everything government touches. And of course, government made it so you can't discharge it.
Nope. You can go bankrupt, but they're going to get paid. You might be living under a friggin' bridge.
They get
in total bankruptcy. You can't afford freaking toilet paper to blow your nose and whatever else, if you know what I mean. But they're going to get their school loan payment back.
It's called the Merchant of Venice.
You can't buy a bag. Yeah, you can't buy a bag of Doritos and a Coca-Cola, but you're going to pay that loan back.
Yep, Shylock gets his pound of flesh. You ever read that?
No, but I've heard the story a little bit. But
yep. Well, the Merchant of Venice, he said, Shylock, this kid, he needed the money and he couldn't find it, so he finally went to Shylock, and Shylock said, "You do not want to borrow from me."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "I have no other option." And he goes, "I always collect." He goes, "I'll get my pound of flesh." So at the very end, Shylock got his pound of flesh, but he could take the pound of flesh from anywhere on this guy's body. Where did he take it?
From his heart.
Yep. He carved it right out of his chest.
I was just guessing. I really didn't know that.
Yep. It's where he wanted it.
I was going to say taking it from his buttocks would have been too easy, right? I mean, you could survive without an ass cheek, but you can't survive without your heart.
Well, Shakespeare was making a point about
that's a big point.
About banksters back then.
Absolutely. That's a good point. The kid forfeited his life from that get-go and didn't realize it.
Yeah.
They didn't realize.
Of course, they had Shylock. He kind of looked like the devil with the.
Yeah.
That's how I remember him looking.
Well, you just beat me to it. I mean, when you choose to dance with the devil, there's a big price for that. And a lot of people choose to do that, some willingly and knowingly, and I would argue probably a lot unknowingly and unwillingly, or unknowingly anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we could use a lot of analogies, Dan. I mean, if you sign your name on the dotted line to join the United States military, you're dancing with the devil.
Well, they own you lock, stock, and barrel, that's for sure.
They use all the tricks to get you. They even get you challenging your own manhood.
Yeah.
Get them to even join. Most men wouldn't choose to do that, but you're in a crisis, and all of a sudden, real men join the military.
Well, that's where, and we read part of it in Cooper's book early on, where he said that's where the patriotism, the nationalism all comes into play, and the societal pressure put on our young men to the point where even families are willing to send their own sons into battle.
Yep.
And to sacrifice them, whether they realize it or not.
Yep. And that's why I brought it up. I'm trying to tie it to.
Yeah.
Make it
absolutely. It's
from
that simple.
Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
Right. If it's defensive, to me, it's no brainer. Otherwise, you better think it through. Is this what you want? Is this what we want as a society and as a whole? Do we want to be spending 47 cents on the dollar, on every dollar, on you know what? Do we want to be doing that?
Yeah, we outspend the next 15 countries.
Do we want to have a base in what is it? 3/4 of the countries in the world? I'm guessing it's got to be 3/4. Is it? Who's got bases in over half the world's country besides us? Who? I don't think the Chinese, the Russians, nobody. Do we have to do that? I'm just asking the question. Am I un-American by asking that question? Some people would say, probably argue, yeah. Some people would say I'm a coward and a pacifist. I've been called both.
Well, some people don't know the word of defense. If you want to believe the rhetoric that we have to have all these bases to defend our country, well, you need to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm all for defense, but is that necessary to have bases like that to defend yourself? I guess the argument would be it's better to fight over there than fight here. That's usually the argument I hear. We'll take it to them there so that we don't have to take it to them here.
We no longer as a country have the financial reserves to live this fat and wasteful.
Totally agreed. Yeah, we don't.
We're going to have to make a choice about where our priorities are.
Yes. When
and
you
they've
look
already made the choice because they're gutting our country. They're not gutting. They're not gutting the military budget.
Well, you made a good point. I was just going to say, look at our infrastructure. Look at our public school systems, and especially in the cities, they're a freaking mess. The healthcare system is a patch quilt of I don't know what. A patch quilt of shit. I hate to say it. It just is. We don't higher educate our children like some countries do. I get there are alternatives, but by and large, particularly in the Northeast and California, I mean, you got to pay $50,000 a year for a half-ass university. I mean, that's exorbitant. 40 grand, 50,
starts
60.
At kindergarten. They're indoctrination. They're not educational. They're daycare centers.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Okay.
No, I agree.
So the parents can work. And look at the comment section in YouTube. Most people don't even use most people don't even know basic English.
Nope, they don't. The grammar is horrendous.
They do it all around the world. The Chinese had to go to a simplified Mandarin. The communists, to unify the country, made Mandarin the language on the whole country, and they went to a simplified instead of the traditional Mandarin. They went to a.
I heard that. Yeah, I don't know the difference between
still
the two.
uses the traditional.
Gotcha. I did hear that, by the way. Yeah. What did they reduce the number of characters and stuff like that?
Yeah, the number of characters and also the same character will now sometimes look completely different because it reduces the number of strokes. Some of the characters are because I forget the term for it, but basically their words are a combination of other words. Right?
I was going to say they can have a symbol, which is can be or a character which can represent like a whole sentence. Like in English, it would be almost a sentence.
I can't think of any examples off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean there's about 4,000 characters in Chinese that I know of. Approximately 4,000 characters. Huh? You know them? Yeah. Huh? Well, I know some words. I've studied a little bit of Chinese actually. I know ni hao, zai jian. How many people tonight for dinner, sir? Fur. Whatever. But, it's very complicated. I've tried to look at some of the characters and I'm like, oh my God, wow, this is a work of art. Even the number 7 is just like, wow, that's a number 7? Calligraphy. It better than me. I mean, I don't, you could speak Chinese. I can't. Exactly. It's beautiful. Some of the stuff it's like calligraphy. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful actually in a lot of ways. But, I mean, they're a very advanced, you could see why they were an advanced society, right? Even 5,000 years ago, just their characters, it's just beautiful, Yeah, and they were taken apart by the English and the Americans and the French and the Germans and the Russians and the Japanese with the Boxer Rebellion. It took them a couple hundred years to get back to where they are today. And that's the number one thing that they remind themselves is we will never let that happen again. Oh, yeah. We will never let that happen again. They have a long memory. They don't forget, unlike us. We forget what happened 7 minutes ago, but they remember, 154 years ago.
Well,
know?
they've identified the correct culprits. I'm not sure that this country identifies. Did we identify who killed JFK or who started all the different wars or was responsible for 9/11? Right, going just the whole list.
Well,
It goes back
I
to Smedley, what they just talked about in this book. Right?
Smedley.
Butler. They didn't hold anybody accountable, and then it happened again under Reagan.
Right. Yeah, and they ended up doing Smedley and a 30-year Marine Corps veteran colonel who saw a lot of combat for this country, waged a lot of campaigns, whatever.
Right, for Citicorp and Chiquita Banana and United Fruit Company, Standard Oil.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. I mean, the first 10, 20 years of it, he did probably didn't realize it, but probably after 20 years, 22 years, 27 years, you get older, you get savvy, you start to see things, you start to put the dots together, and you're like, shit, we fought all these battles. I was at Tripoli here. You know, I was in 1905 in the Philippines here. You know, when we invented the 45 handgun because they were jacked up on cocaine and we didn't have enough knockdown power at the time. So that's where the 45 came from and blah, 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 blah. And what was it all for?
Profits.
That's
Please,
right, I forgot.
May I have more?
Exactly.
More?
Exactly. How
Send
dare
in
you?
the Marines.
How dare you?
Smedley, we need you to lead
Yes.
the battalion down to take out the banana workers. They are going on strike because they want another penny.
Yes. I need you back in Libya.
I don't,
North Africa. I need you in North Africa, Smedley.
I don't think he went to North Africa.
I need you in Benghazi. And then Tripoli.
Yeah. Benghazi, there we go.
I'm just throwing stuff out of my whatever. I need you in Malta. So, yeah, exactly. You know, rah, rah,
Is it ever-
hoorah, hoorah, baby.
But I
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.